truly believe that when people say, I want a leader, what that really is just a very poorly addressed need.
What does that even mean?
Especially when it comes to women. And it's not just because women don't know what they want, right? But because they're already doing it. In a way, she's already leading their relationship. She's already planning the dates. She's tracking the emotional connection, making sure intimacy doesn't fade, navigating tough conversations, thinking about the future of the relationship, and so on. So when she says, I want a leader, what she actually means is, I want a leader just like me. She's leading by example, hoping it will inspire the same effort back. But when that doesn't happen, she has to spell it out. And that's where the miscommunication begins. Okay, so before we even get into what women mean versus what men hear, let's talk about why this miscommunication happens in the first place.
It's just so frustrating.
A lot of women struggle to center themselves in their own experience. Instead of saying, this is what I feel, this is what I need, very often they frame things around their partner's role. So instead of, I need you to notice when I overextend myself, they might say, I want a protector. And instead of saying, I want us to co-lead this relationship, not just me taking all the initiative, they might say, I want a leader. But why does this happen and why women use this type of verbiage? A few reasons for that. So for starters, historically speaking, vulnerability wasn't always safe for women. For a long time, expressing needs didn't always end well. Being too emotional got dismissed, being too needy got punished. So instead, women learned to phrase their needs in ways that sounded more like a job title than an emotional experience, because historically, it also worked better with men. They were receiving it much better. Then, of course, there's the fact that society teaches women to decenter themselves. Women are taught to focus on what men can do for them rather than how they actually feel about them. That's why a lot of women don't say, I feel disconnected, and they say, I need a man who leads. One is centered in their experience, but the other is framed as a role the man needs to play. This reflects almost a generational trauma, if you will, of women. And I'd say that this is the result of centuries of oppression and servitude. I mean, for generations, women weren't seen as individuals. For God's sakes, we were debating if women are even human to begin with, like, what, 100 years ago? Their survival literally depended on what a man could provide, and we can definitely see the consequences of that type of culture. So instead of learning to say, this is what I feel and this is what I need, women were conditioned to say, I need a man who is strong, I need a man who provides, I need a man who leads, because historically, those were the things that determined whether she thrived or suffered. And while society has changed, of course, and women are gaining more autonomy than ever before, this pattern of communication hasn't fully caught up yet. It's something women are actively unlearning, or at least some of them, but like all deeply ingrained conditioning, it takes time. So generally speaking, women are still in the process of shifting from what does a man need to be to what do I need in this relationship? And that transition, of course, isn't always smooth, so miscommunication happens a lot. Plus, many women assume men should just understand the unspoken layers behind phrases like, I want a leader, but guess what?
People are better guessing games.
Most men were never taught to decode emotional subtext. If you don't spell it out, it just gets lost many times. So now, let's see exactly how this miscommunication plays out. When she says, I want a man who leads, what he hears is, she wants me to be in charge of everything. So what does he do? Of course, he starts making unilateral decisions, assumes she wants submission, suddenly thinks he's a medieval king, I don't know.
King of the castle.
What she really wanted, though, all along was just initiative, just very poorly expressed. So let me explain what that means. In heterosexual relationships, the maintenance of the relationship often falls on the woman by kind of default. Suddenly, she's the one who's, as we said before, planning dates, keeping track of how often they go on said dates, keep tabs on emotional depth, and initiate serious conversations, and so on. She's basically project manager, HR, and emotional support system, and at some point, it gets exhausting.
It's too much.
So when she says, I want a leader, she doesn't mean I want someone to take over and run things for me. She means I want someone who meets me at the level I'm already at. Like, I already have a lot of things to manage. Can you please take your share and lead in this relationship?
Please and thank you very much.
She wants to feel like she's not the only one keeping track of where this relationship is going, because when only one person is holding it together, it starts feeling like a one-sided job instead of a partnership. So as her partner, instead of assuming that she wants you to be in charge of everything, you should ask, do you mean you want me to plan more dates, or maybe check in emotionally, or what does it even mean for you, leadership? What can make you feel like I'm leading in a way that actually helps you? Are there things you feel like you're always in charge of that you wish were more balanced? Another popular one, when she says, I want a protector, what he hears is, I need an intimidating 24/7 bodyguard. So naturally, he thinks he has to be hyper-masculine and aggressive, or ready to fight a gang if needed be. But very often, she just wants mental, emotional, and logistical protection. What she actually means often is, I want to feel like you have my back, and not just physically, but emotionally. I want to know you'll stand up for me in social situations, support me when I'm stressed, and create an environment where I can be vulnerable without judgment, where I can let my guard down, which is very different from please be my human shield in public all the time. She means please see me when I'm doing too much, step in when you notice I'm carrying everything alone, make me feel safe when I get vulnerable, learn how to emotionally contain me when I share my feelings, don't try to fix me, just hold space and see me. Essentially what she's saying is protect me from burnout, not just from external threats.
There's so much to do.
Protection doesn't always look like standing between her and danger. Very often the danger is for her to feel alone in the relationship, as if you live two different lives and they don't overlap very often. Sometimes protection looks like stepping in and saying, hey, I see you're doing everything on your own, let me take several things from your plate. And do so without being asked, because if I have to tell you to do something, I'm still managing it, I'm still in charge of it. That's being on call 24/7, and that's a freaking job. So as her partner, instead of assuming that she wants you to be ready to fight random people, you should perhaps, again, ask. Do you mean physical safety, emotional support, knowing you don't have to do everything alone? What makes you feel truly safe and protected in a relationship? How can I embody that? At this point, you've probably noticed something.
There's a pattern emerging here.
Every single time these phrases get misinterpreted, the solution is women need to center their needs instead of vague role expectations. Men need to stop assuming and start asking more questions. And both need to actually engage in the conversation instead of reacting emotionally. But very often it's easier said than done. So let me give you a couple of exercises, one for each partner, that addresses this very pattern.